Hey, how's it going? Welcome back, Jen Amos here, your host for Generic Conversations. It's 4th of July here in America, which to me is a good reminder of the freedom I have to express myself and facilitate many conversations I'm fortunate to have through podcasting. With Generic Conversations, my intent is to spark an introspective conversation with yourself in hopes that you too will count your blessings. Really excited for today's conversation, but before we dive in, I do have a couple of announcements. First of all, if you're interested in resources and content that inspire you to say, I needed this, I encourage you to visit genericpodcast.com. Remember, that's generic with a J, as in Jen, Jack, Jill, Jaguar. Or in our show notes, you can find our sign-up form for our newsletter. Would love to have you be a part of it, love to have you be part of the community, and hopefully have you contribute. Secondly, if you've been enjoying these conversations so far and you want to be in community with people who value introspective conversations with themselves by listening to other people's stories, consider signing up for my mastermind group. You can check out the show notes of this episode or, again, visit genericpodcast.com to get on the waiting list. And of course, Generic Podcasts wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for our sponsors. I get asked quite often, Jen, how did you start podcasting? Where do you even begin? Well, if you're looking for a web hosting service, I highly recommend Captivate.fm. If you're someone that doesn't want to keep explaining to people, oh, you can find my show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google Podcasts, if you just want to send them to one website, Captivate makes it really easy for you to not only distribute your show, but refer your listeners to one website. You can get an example of what their website templates look like by visiting my website, genericpodcast.com. And if you would like to learn more about them as our sponsor, please check out our show notes. Or you can visit genericconversations.com. Remember, that's generic with a J as in Jen, genericconversations.com, to learn about Captivate as well as the rest of our sponsors. With that said, I'm really excited to dive into our next interview. This conversation with Michelle Baxo will have you thinking about choosing the person that you want to be in a relationship. I think this is actually kind of important, especially if you have a pandemic partner right now or aspire to have one. If you had one, what kind of relationship do you want that to look like, and who do you want to be in that relationship? And if you do have a pandemic partner, to, maybe evaluate how you can be better in that relationship. This conversation will also have you thinking about what it means to finally truly settle in after a lifetime of living a nomadic gypsy life. Also, your impulses, how they actually may not be your calling or what you actually need. And lastly, this conversation will have you thinking about how the in-between is our access to going from powerless to powerful. All right, that's all I got to share. Please enjoy this interview with Michelle Baxo. All right. Hey, everyone. Jen Amos here. Welcome back to Generic Conversations, where I'm very fortunate to have candid conversations with amazing individuals that'll have you say, I needed this. Today's conversation is with Michelle Baxo. Michelle Baxo is an empowerment coach helping high-achieving women around the world to go from powerless to powerful in every aspect of life, including love, business, and mindset. Michelle's expert advice can be found in various media outlets such as Forbes, Cosmopolitan, and Insider. Her new book, Power Love Dating, has been released and is a real-world guide to empowered love. Michelle lives in Canada with her partner, Tommy, and their toddler, Isabella. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm really excited to connect with you. And I just want to give a shout out to the Pod It community, because I think if it wasn't for the Pod It community, we wouldn't have found each other.
I know. It's so exciting.
Yeah, for sure. So shout out to them. And if anyone is listening to this and you're looking to, be a guest on someone's show or to, networking that kind of fashion, just check out genericconversations.com. That's generic with the J. And I'll have that Pod It resource for you that you can jump on right away and take advantage of. Awesome bio. I'm really excited to dive into some of the things that you are so passionate about. But for people that are getting to know you for the first time, and given the landscape of things nowadays, why don't you share? Why don't you share a snapshot of your life today, particularly what keeps you busy and excited?
Oh, well, it's funny because the snapshot of my life just changed 4 days ago.
Awesome.
Because we've just moved. So my daughter is about 21 months old, so almost 2 years old. And we live with her dad, Tommy. But we've been living in the city of Toronto for quite some time, but we just bought our dream home about an hour north of the city, right near the lake. Beautiful. So I'm in my new office now.
Wow.
So wraparound windows, gorgeous trees, birds I'd never even seen in my life. And I'm only an hour away from where I lived before, but it's like just this, I'm in this oasis now. I have a view of the lake. It's just incredible. And anyone who's lived in any city, like pretty much any dense city, we can all appreciate, places are usually on the smaller side because of space in cities, pretty much anywhere you go. So we went from being in quite tight quarters to now having so much space that we don't even know, like, what are we going to put in that closet? Like, oh, we don't, what are we going to put in these cupboards, So yeah, my life right now just shifted, but it's like this big exhale, when you, I don't know, I hate to say I know it's all about the journey. It's not about arriving, but sometimes when we have these pit stops where we can just go, yes, I arrived here. Yes. Like this is, and for me, I would say since I left my childhood home at about, I think I was 18 when I left my childhood home, and I'm just about 39 now. So for quite some time, I've been a bit of a gypsy on this planet. I've lived in about 15 different places. Just never really, it was always like, this is good for now. This is good for now. Not quite it. And that's how a lot of my relationships were too for a long time. Yeah. It was like, that was really in my jobs. Like a lot of things for me were like, this is great for now, but not quite it. And, this is a really special time for me because I feel like it's for the first time in my life, I'm in the relationship where I can say, this is it.
There you go.
Obviously, I'm a mom now, so, like, this is it. I'm in the home and in the town where I can say, yeah, this is it. And that feels really good.
Wow. Michelle, you said so many awesome things in just a snapshot of your life today. First of all, I completely understand, or I can relate to the whole house situation. My husband and I, we met and lived in downtown San Diego, California I lived with him for about a year and a half before we moved to the East Coast in Virginia. But we had a 1-bedroom, 1 apartment, one bedroom, 1 living room, apartment, like in downtown San Diego. And I remember when I moved a number of times before I moved in there, but like every time I moved, I had to get rid of more and more stuff. And especially when I moved in with him, I was like, oh my gosh, we have like just 1 closet, for our stuff. And so luckily my mom lived like 20, 30 minutes away. And so, on occasion, and she's a hoarder anyway. So on occasion I would just drop off more stuff there. And I know that it would stay there. One time my mom, this is how she's a hoarder. So my mom, she had used the same, graduation sign, like congratulations sign for my sister's high school graduation to her college graduation.
Oh my gosh.
So she kept the same exact sign. So that's how and that's how I knew that if I leave stuff there, it's going to be safe.
Yeah.
But anyway, we had moved to the East Coast, and we now live in a 3-story house with like 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and a garage and a backyard. Like I don't remember the last time I had a backyard. And we lived here for about a year and a half now. And but still, like, there's still so much empty space. Like, we just don't, like, I'm afraid to even want to fill it up because, like, we're just renting and I don't know, obviously we're not going to live here long term, but like, still, it's like, we just have so much space. And so we recently had one of our roommates move out like earlier this year, and we decided to turn his room, because we didn't know what to do with it. We're like, oh, let's just turn it into like a meditation / gym. So we have that. And, you know, given the social distancing, it's been nice to kind of have this little ecosystem at home.
Totally.
But yeah, I mean, just knowing what to do once you have, you know, you go from 1 bedroom to 3 bedrooms. You're just like, what do I do with all this space?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's different too. I mean, I bet you'll find too, whenever you guys do decide to, like to buy a home, when it's, because even I don't know about other people. I know for me, I was never going to buy a home unless I like wanted to stay there, you know? And so that's been a whole other level of it too, is knowing that I'm at the place that I'm going to be for a long, long time. That used to terrify me.
Yeah.
10 years ago, I'd be like, I can't buy a home. I don't know if I'm coming or going. Are you kidding me? I needed the freedom to be able to leave on a moment's notice.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, so there's the I guess what I'm saying is like, there's the physical space for sure, but also just this, I don't know, this emotional space that is new. I'll be honest, it's new for me in this stage of my life. I didn't know if I was capable of truly settling in, you know, without becoming bored in my life. And it's, definitely the opposite is true.
Yeah, it sounds like you are experiencing just this perception of permanence for the first time in your life. You're just like, oh, okay, I'm this, like you said, this is it. Like, I'm here. And I like how you said earlier that, you know, we talk a lot about, most people always focus on like, oh, focus on the journey, focus on the journey. But it's okay to enjoy the milestones when you do make it to a certain destination. And I'm just glad to be experiencing the destination you are currently at right now with you.
Well, thank you. Yeah. You know, and I think it's, you know, a big part of what I talk about when I'm coaching people is the in-between. Like, the in-between comes up for me, and it'll probably come up with us like 1,000 times in this podcast. But you know, a lot of the times we go to one extreme or the other. Like, we're either all focused on the journey. And then we forget to acknowledge our milestones. We forget to celebrate. We forget to enjoy, or we have our attention all on those milestones. And then we forget to, you know, experience and focus on the journey too, right? We have this tendency to always swing all the way one, all the way the other. Right. But, you know, when we are awake, making conscious choices in our lives, you know, which sometimes we are and sometimes we're not, if any of us are really honest, right? But when we're awake, we can actually choose to do both, like to enjoy, you know, I've arrived to some degree in my life, but I'm still very much looking at what's next and what am I creating here and all these things. But it would be easy. So here's the thing I caught myself. I'm always really big on, I think if you're going to be a coach, you have to be doing the work yourself all the time. And I have no ego about the fact that I'm just as human now as I ever, you know, as I've always been. So when we got to this house, I was so excited about it, celebrating it. But where my brain automatically went is, oh, well, got to tear up these carpets, definitely want new cabinets. Oh, what are we going to do with this yard? How are we going to do this deck? Blah, blah, blah. And it's not that there's anything wrong with wanting to make a place your own, but I almost missed enjoying arriving here. And I had to consciously catch myself and go, Michelle, you'll never have just moved into this place again. Enjoy it. And so now, you know, for me, we put this little love seat in the front of the place. There's this big wraparound window. It's like, for me, it's a dream window, the kind of window that you want to read near. You can just sit and gaze out and watch the birds. Like, I love it. And we put this love seat right there, and it's my favorite place to sit. There's no TV nearby. There's no anything. You be there just to be there. And so that's my place where whenever I'm there, the only thing I'm doing is enjoying.
Oh,
and other times, sure, then I can focus on what color do I want these walls to be and blah, blah, blah. But, I just think it's so important that we allow for wanting to grow, shift, change, enhance. Like all of those things are awesome. I'm like a massive advocate for it, but not at the cost of enjoying life and the destinations.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been hearing a lot in your talk about really just your life as a gypsy in the last 39 years of your life. And it's really only now where you're experiencing this, perception of permanence and owning a home and everything. I'm curious, where does that gypsy personality, come from? Is it something in regards to your childhood where you're just like, you were constantly on the go? Or, I'm just curious, like, where did that come from? And it must feel so interesting to be where you are today to know that maybe that's behind you now.
Sure. Yeah. Well, definitely. So I didn't have the upbringing, where I was forced to move from city to city or anything, but my parents did divorce when I was 2 years old, and I was for a certain point. So for a few years into my adolescence, I was 1 week at my mom's, 1 week at my dad's, which was very confusing because they had very different values. And I did that, if I'm really honest too, I did that to keep everybody happy. There was a custody battle. And when I heard that as an option, I was 8 or 9 years old when all of this custody stuff went down. My parents divorced when I was 2, but then it was my dad wanted custody anyway, blah, blah, blah. And so really I just wanted to be where my big brother was, to be honest with you. But I agreed to it because then everybody would be happy. And there I was learning the lesson of pleasing.
Yeah, at 8 years old.
At 8 years old. Yeah. And then as I got a little bit older, my brother, who doesn't deal with this anymore, but at the time when I was growing up, my brother was dealing with addictions, like multiple addictions. My younger sister was struggling with some emotional things. And then there was just the divorce of my parents, people fighting, all this stuff. And it wasn't let me be really frank. I had a very blessed life. Like I did not have, I would have really have just said I had an ordinary childhood, honestly, but just some of these details that were going on. And I always had this feeling like I was supposed to, like if I don't pay attention and solve these issues, I don't know, like I felt some sense of responsibility for everyone in my family, and that stressed me out a lot. And so now this is in hindsight that I understand this. I didn't have this awareness at the time, but as I grew up, I knew I didn't want to live at home. As I grew up, it was all about counting the days basically until I could graduate high school and go away for university. I always wanted to be away. And in the summers, I would go away to summer camp, which was amazing. And that was where I felt the most free in my life. And I went every year for like my whole life. Honestly, I even became the assistant director there for a while. Like it was like, I was hardcore into it, but it was my like getaway. And so I started learning like how nice it was to start fresh somewhere else, to go away. And I just got in this habit of doing that. So some parts were just circumstantial. Like when you go to university, it's not uncommon. So you live in residence the first year and then you get a house with some friends the next year. And then I was in a relationship. So I moved in with that guy. And then we moved to a different place the next, like it was just sort of, there was that. And I just got in this habit of doing that. I knew that when I graduated university, I had said to myself, anything but home, like wherever. So I did my first degree, I did in environmental studies. And then I didn't really want any of the jobs that came from that. So I went back and did my education degree. And I thought, okay, wherever they offer me teaching, I'll go there. And so Calgary was in their boom period at the time. They were hiring. I took the job. Great. But I was there and it was like this perfect job. I got to teach outdoor education and environmental education. It was awesome. I loved it, but it wasn't my home. And so that was a really great example of, okay, I'm here. And so in university, I was there, but it wasn't my home. I went to teach in Calgary. It was great. I had this awesome job, but it wasn't my home. But home didn't feel like my home either. And I didn't know where I was coming or going. I thought I wanted to just keep going west. And it was just this search for some sort of experience of my life like it was my own. And then something, I won't go into details about it, but something traumatic happened to me while I was in Calgary. And it was kind of like the universe smacking me across the back of the head saying, hello, go home. Because I had been talking about, like, I think I do want to move back home, but like to Toronto instead of the suburbs where I grew up. And I think I do want to do these things, but I was waiting and waiting and waiting for, I didn't know what. And then this awful thing happened and I needed to take a leave of absence from my work. I was a school teacher right at the time, took a leave of absence. It had me realize I've built this like seemingly perfect life. I have a great job as a teacher. It's very secure. Everyone's happy with it. I'm in a great city. I have everything, but my life doesn't feel like my own. I need to actually let go of all of this to create my life, to design my life so I can experience my life. And so I did some mind body work. I did some counseling, and ultimately I did a course called the Landmark Forum, and which was like, just freed me up to just like stop being so scared of taking risks and living my life. And so I actually, after doing that course, I quit my job as a teacher, but my principal was so happy for me because she knew this is what I needed to do. Moved back sort of home, but like actually in Toronto, which was like a, happening city where I could, anyway, I was so excited about it and started my entrepreneurial journey there. Actually, I ended up working at the company Landmark for a number of years and leading some of their programs. I went hardcore there for a while. Yeah.
I didn't know that. I don't mean to jump in, but I didn't realize, I've heard about Landmark forever. Yeah. And I know a number of people in my network who've been through it, including my sister. And it's been life-changing for all of them. And I didn't realize it was out there in Canada. So that's just really cool to know, like, how much reach Landmark has.
Landmark's all over the world. Yeah. It's not in every city, but it's in every, I'm pretty sure every continent. Like it's in a lot of places. Yeah. I think their programs are just awesome and I'm super grateful for it. And I'm super grateful for working there too. That was like, that's a great personal development program is is working it, right?
And shout out to Landmark.
What's that?
Shout out to Landmark
for sure. And then, anyway, I could keep going the story of my life, and actually there, I could say this. So even when I initially was moving to Toronto, I was still like, I got a place with sort of a friend of a friend, which was again, fine for now. Perfect. I'm in the city. It's great. But then she kind of turned a little wackadoo and I started being scared for my safety. So then I moved again, but I moved into something that wasn't great. It was this dingy basement apartment and I was like, this isn't a fit. So then I moved again, like it was just constantly settling for less, I think, and making really rash decisions too, not fully owning what I wanted. And then it was interesting when I took the job at Landmark, the hours are intense. Like it is it's a lot of hours you work there. And so I got an apartment with someone else who worked there right up the road, like a 7-minute walk, so that it could be super convenient and all of that. Right. But it was funny. I remember vividly after about 6 months of being in there, I started looking for a new place. For no reason. I just had like this itch. Right. Okay, well, I've been here for about 6 months. And so where am I going to, and I was going to move all the way across the city, and Toronto's a pretty big city. So to get across is like a long time for no reason, except for this itch that I had. And it was great to discover, like sometimes those impulses aren't actually your calling, aren't actually what you want or need. It's just a habit. It's just a brain pattern. Right. And often, and sometimes even running away from something. Right. So that was the first time I stayed somewhere. I stayed there with Megan for, I worked there for 4 years. So I must've lived there for 4 years. And that was like, honestly, I hadn't been anywhere longer than 8 months since I'd been 19. Right. And so this was in my 30s. And so, so that was my first, and again, obviously working for a personal and professional development company, you're constantly taking on your own personal and professional crap that comes up. Right. Right. And so I really, I was in the perfect place to deal with that part of me that just always never stayed, I wasn't someone that you could count on. I wasn't that friend that was going to be there for life. I wasn't anybody's maid of honor. I wasn't, you know what I mean? Because I was like your awesome, fun friend for like a while, and then I would leave.
Like, hey,
right?
Bye. Right.
You know? And so that was really good for me. And it was almost like that was a stepping stone, like really understanding what it means to stay past that itch was one of many stepping stones towards, finding someone who would actually be an appropriate match, for example, to build a life with, someone that I actually, being someone that others could count on, and finding someone that I could count on. Right.
Yeah.
And building a life with. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a therapist in any way, but yeah, I can understand, just from the story you told me, why you always had that itch to move. And I imagine it just really stems back to, your parents divorcing, and then, wanting to like, just people pleasing, and wanting to stay at one home for a week and then switching to the other. And that probably just carried into your adult life. And, in a way I can relate, because I come from a military family, and we had moved every 2 to 3 years. And eventually unfortunately I had lost my dad when I was 10. And we ended up my mom ended up settling us in San Diego for 20 years. But in those 20 years, I just never felt like I could settle. Like, just like you, I always school didn't really help, because, you have middle school, you're there for 2 years, and then you go to high school. And then I actually went to 2 different high schools. And then in college, it's a free for all. I found myself changing my major 3 times. And then, in my young 20s, I was fired from 4 jobs. And I eventually just got into sales, because it was the one thing the one thing that wouldn't fire me, the one thing that would be consistent. And, about a decade later, I'm 32 now. I have learned to just be comfortable in, just spontaneity, and in a way being a gypsy as well. And lucky me, my husband, when we met, it turned out he was essentially the same way. He couldn't settle in one place either. And so, we strive to build a mobile income type of business, so that we could take off again. But I really like how you just got to a place where man, I'm not moving because I have an itch to go somewhere. I just have an itch. It's just this habitual thing that I've been used to for so long. And I think it's really beautiful that you had recognized that still in your, I consider 30s young adult years, honestly. You realize that as a young adult, because I think that there are people, it takes them way later in life to realize what they're doing, just that pattern of not really addressing the root of why they keep doing what they're doing.
And also the impact too, right? I think one of the things I hadn't realized is the impact of always moving every 6 to 8 months was I never really had to deal with deep relationships, whether it was with a roommate or a partner or a friend, neighbor, whatever it was. It would feel deep, and connected, but the part where it gets hard, the part where you start seeing each other's dark, shadow sides, the part that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I never had to really go there for a long time since I'd been a kid. And so I think, that was really part of it too, is not having to deal with some of the discomforts that come from anything, a relationship after a year, anything after a year, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. So I think it's just really, really impressive and admirable that you have this self-awareness. And I know it has a lot to do with your personal development, career and landmark. With where you are at today, how is it do you feel like you're in a place now where you feel comfortable having deep relationships and getting to the nasty part of relationships after the honeymoon phases are over?
Yeah. It was interesting when, Tommy and I had both done a lot of self-work on ourselves before we ended up together. We met later in life, right? And he'd done a ton of personal development as well. And so one of the things we actually talked about in the very, very early stages of the relationship is, look, we're grown ass adults here. Okay. And it's not an accident that neither of us are married yet.
Right. Yeah. Let's not hide that fact.
Like, let's actually deal with this head on. And so we had this conversation, and it's something I highly recommend. I have my clients do this with, if part of what they're looking for is creating a new relationship, when they're in that relationship, I have them do this. And you can even do this, even if it's not a new relationship, but you want to make sure it lasts. But you actually look at, so we each looked at our past relationships and saw, okay, based on the things that have happened in the past, what's predictable from my end? Like, what's predictable from my end to happen that's going to wreck this relationship?
Wow.
And then what can I do about that? And how can you help me with it? Right. So, so for me, what I had shared is I said, like, look, I pride myself in being really easygoing and open-minded. And so what's likely to happen is I'm going to be super easygoing and super open-minded. And that's going to be really fun for a while. But over time, I'm going to lose myself, because it's going to turn into being over accommodating.
Wow.
And when I start, and then I'm going to slowly, like, it's going to start eroding at me. I'm going to start becoming a little resentful or disconnected from myself. I'm probably going to lose my sex drive. And then that's going to cause tension in our relationship. Right. And then I'll probably decide I'll fall out of love with you. And then I'll have to end the relationship so I can go find myself. That was like probably how this is going to go.
Wow.
And so him knowing that made a really big difference, because now, for instance, let's say it's yoga night for me, but he really wanted to do something else. He's not going to press. Like, if I say, well, tonight's yoga night, he's not going to be like, oh, come on, but I really want to do this with you. Like, he'll be like, good, go to yoga. Because he knows he's doing that for me as a human being, but also for our relationship. And I know that too. So, cause it's so easy. Like, one of the things as women, we accommodate, we're very good at accommodating. It's one of our biggest strengths that we can handle. We can actually stretch ourselves quite a bit. We can compromise, but if we don't take responsibility for it, we actually actively destroy the relationships. And we don't think like that. We think we're helping the relationship by doing what the other person wants all the time, but we're actually ruining it. So for me, when I'm able to, because I'm able to recognize that when I'm whole, this relationship has a shot at lasting forever. If I'm not whole, it doesn't have a shot. It's just going to be a slow erosion to misery. And so that was so powerful. And then he did the same thing. He shared like what was likely to happen for him. And I know the parts for me to be responsible for, and he knows the parts for him to be responsible for. So I think what more than anything, what I really learned, and this is a huge emphasis in my book and with all my coaching, is how important our own alignment and supporting another person, empowering another person to have their own alignment really is as part of the partnership. That's so much of it. So you have, there's this analogy someone gave me. I don't know who originated this. This is not my thing. It's something someone told me once, but I always share it. It's called the H relationship compared to the A relationship. So an A, if you think of like the two big sticks of the capital letter A, the two big sticks that are leaning on each other, and then they've got the little stick across being the relationship, the two big sticks being the two people. If you take the relationship away, they both fall over. If you take one person away, the other one falls over, right? Whereas an H, you've got two sticks, two people standing strong on their own. So if you move one away, the other one's still standing. If you take the relationship away, they're both still standing. Wow. It's two whole people actively choosing to be together and doing the work there is to do that without the leaning. Right. Wow. And that's power love. Power love is a big part of what, I talk about power love all the time, but in a relationship, that's what, that's very symbolic of what power love is. So there's definitely a join, but it's as a creation, it's as a commitment. And there's as much emphasis on two people being whole as it is the merging together and building a life together.
That's so powerful. I think you said something really important, or the key word that I got from your explanation is choice. Choosing to be with someone, because, I think about my early romantic relationships and since high school, where I kind of just fell into relationships. Yeah. It kind of just happens.
Yeah.
And I remember my college sweetheart, I was with him for 6 or 7 years. The last year was really complicated. That's why I say 6 or 7.
Yeah.
But I remember it was those final years, or toward the end, where I started to really look at our relationship and kind of wake up to like, wait, why am I in this relationship?
Yeah.
And it's not like he was a bad person in any way. It's just that, and I don't want to speak ill of him. I just think that we just fell into a relationship where my husband, at the very beginning, like, we both were already into personal development on our own. That when we started to date each other, we started off by reading books together. And one of the books that I really want to credit, I don't have the author's name on the top of my head, but the book is called Attached. And it talks about the
attachment styles.
Yes, the 3 different attachment styles. And it was a really beautiful experience, like, reading that with him. And, I was saying to him, I was like, oh, like, you seem like a secure person. He's like, what? Like, you think I'm a secure person? I think I'm an anxious person. You seem like a secure person. And it was just really cute, like, just like being aware of those attachment styles. And after that book, we read another book together, and we read another book together. We attended a lot of personal development or professional development related conferences.
Awesome.
And I just think that as we get older, in life, we start to realize that we do have choice, and we don't have to we don't have to settle or just naturally fall into certain types of relationships. But I do think that for anyone that's listening to this, and maybe you're not in a relationship yet, or you are in a relationship, to be aware that you have a choice. You have a choice to choose who you want to be with, and you have a choice to, reevaluate who the person you are with. And so that's what I'm hearing from you.
And the person that you're being in the relationship. So there's the other person for sure. I think a lot of it is, the opportunity to choose to be awake rather than default. I think we have this tendency when it comes to love. Well, we talk about it with such mystery, right? Like, the right one will come along. It's very mystical, the way we've been brought up to understand love relationships, as opposed to any, relating to it the way we do, creating the career of your dreams or anything else that you want, right? But I think it's also important to look at, like, choosing who you want to be with, absolutely, but also who you want to be. Because well, for one, knowing who you want to be in a relationship will help you choose the right person, but it also will help you prevent you from sabotaging something with a really great person.
Yes. So true. So true.
Because for instance, when we just admire someone that we're with, for example, and just, we just start kind of, or doing what I did, which is, I called it open-minded and easygoing, but really I just handed, the responsibility for my life to somebody else. And so that relationship not working out, I'm thinking of one of them, he was an alcoholic, so that wasn't going to go well. But even if I think of, prior relationships, it's hard to say. I was young, quite a bit younger. I didn't really know what it meant to own myself as a woman when I was in my early 20s, right? But so I can't actually say if I had picked the wrong one. The really, when I look back on that, all I can see for sure is where I had growth. So much, and I think we forget this a lot of the time, is that we don't really give relationships a true chance if we don't get out of our own way.
Yeah, for sure. And I do find that a lot of people end up in relationships where they feel like the other person has to complete them, or the person has to, like, culturally, we've sort of convinced ourselves that the person that we're going to end up with has to be everything and anything, to you, to help you solve all your problems and be your savior, be your hero, be your provider.
He has to, whether it's male or women, right? They totally turn us on. They also have to give us complete sense of security, which even those two things kind of conflict in a lot of ways, right? So they have to totally turn us on. They have to give us a sense of security. It's kind of like they need to be our lover, our partner, our parent, our friend, our best friend, not just a friend. They have to be like our best friend, our soulmate, our, you know, our guru, they also have to let us teach them things. Like we create, and it's basically, I think, something that we've really, and, you know, and again, I am dealt with this probably as more than a lot of people. We just don't like to deal with things.
Right.
And which is funny, because sometimes, because we don't like to deal with things, we stay in relationships that we shouldn't stay in, just so that we don't have to deal with that. Right. So it get that resistance to, and a lot, when I say deal with things, mostly it's deal with ourselves. Deal with ourselves when it comes to setting a boundary and upholding it and having it be our job. Deal with ourselves when it comes time to communicating something that's hard to communicate, or to advocate for ourselves when, you know, someone has said or done something that does cross a boundary, and, you know, teaching people how to win with us. Like, this is all really, ultimately, we think it's dealing with the external, but really we're navigating the external, but we're dealing with ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on that note, it would be great. Let's dive into just some of the awesome resources that we have to share with our listeners today. First of all, there's two things, so you can decide which one to talk about first. But I know that you have a free gift for our listeners. So there's that, and then also there's your book on power love dating. And I imagine that with our conversation so far, a lot of what we've been talking about are in those resources. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot of, well, some things we've talked with, some of these personal stories I've shared, I don't even know if I've ever shared with anybody.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks for sharing it on my show.
Yeah, no, but a lot of what we're talking about, I mean, this is who I am. This is what I do. Right. So Power Love Dating. So this book's just come out. I'm so excited about it, because a huge focus of mine for the last 3 years, like a large percentage of my clients have been these amazing, smart, intelligent, kick-ass women who you would think should be in relationships, but for whatever reason, they're not, right? They're settling for crap. They're settling for crumbs, or they're, you know, they can't, or they look around and they can't even see any good options out there. And like, sure, I would be in a committed relationship if I could find someone to be in, like that, you know, like that experience. And I know that was my experience forever. So that's why I got really interested in focusing in on this topic. And so I worked with women all around the world, specifically in this area, women between the ages of 28 and 60. And they were all like kick-ass, smart, self-aware women. And so this book is really it's a combination of using my journey to help you guide your journey. With specific steps to take and journal exercises to do and actions to take in your life. And then in the second half is a lot of like really like answers to the questions everybody has. Okay, like how to set up your online dating profile.
Oh, hey.
Like, does height really matter, or should it, right? Like, why you're attracted to unavailable guys, how to stop obsessive thinking. You know, when we like someone and then here we are, this strong, amazing, independent woman, and then we turn into a crazy girl who can't stop looking at her phone. How to stop that, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I just want to add something to this conversation, because I really, although I'm married now, it's interesting because I had told this to like even I started to realize this with my previous partners, that I've always been told that I was this, you know, independent woman, like she can stand on her own, she can do her own thing. Yeah. But the moment I'm with a romantic partner, kind of like what you said, like you start off really open-minded and they love you for it. But then in time, when you start to really commit to someone, you become over accommodating. Yeah. And that's what I did. I ended up just, I remember my college sweetheart, I wrapped my life around his schedule. You know, I worked from home. So whenever he was off work, I'd be free. Or if I could go to his work, I would be there and I'd be working on my laptop, but I was always there. And I remember just when I started to get more vulnerable with a partner, I would really start to crumble, like you said. And I remember my college sweetheart specifically saying this to me. He's like, it was really bad. He was very, very just insulting in a way. He was like, what happened to you? Like, I thought you were this strong woman. And he's like, I've only been around strong women in my life. Like, I don't know how to handle this right now. Like when I was at my most vulnerable, and oh my gosh, it was very eye-opening for me. And to even like, and it got me to think about my relationships moving forward, like after him, of like, okay, am I going to crumble, if I fall in love with this person? So I love that you're covering this topic, because I think for me, it probably stems from having lost my dad at a young age. And I felt like I had to be this independent person, but it was until I met someone that probably had that father-like personality, or someone that reminded me of my dad. Like I think I would just crumble, because I didn't know how to maintain those type of relationships, because I lost my dad at such a young age. I mean, I never really talked to a therapist about that, but that's kind of what I'm thinking in my head. So anyway, I just so I just love that you have a book that focuses on independent women and really getting into the weeds of why do you think we crumble? Like, why do you think that we get so vulnerable, or we suddenly don't become that strong, woman after being in a relationship for some time?
Well, because we swing to extremes. Like this is why I talk some. Remember, I said I'm going to totally bring up navigating the in-between. This is a good example of that, right?
Perfect.
And so that extreme. So first of all, we often build, like you said it perfectly. There's usually a reason why we've built that strong, independent personality, right? And it's in response to something. So there's a historical response to it, right? Like in terms of, if we look at the past, women didn't have their independence; they were considered property for so long,
right?
Generationally, we have this reaction to be to not just have our strength and independence. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but it's also become our armor. Like the way we stay protected, the way we feel safe, the way we feel secure. And so for some people, now I think it's totally fine if people know they don't want a relationship. I'm not one to say everyone should be, or any of that. So if that's the case, fine. But there's a lot of people, and I was one of them for a long time, where I acted like I didn't even want one, because I didn't need one. And I thought that if I wanted one, it would meant I needed one. And so first of all, we swing all the way to the extreme often in this strength, this independence. Sometimes we say we want a committed relationship, but we're actually terrified of commitment because of what that might do to our independence. And why that comes up is because for most of us in a relationship, we have done that. We have crumbled. We have given it all away. And so we swing. It's kind of like, oh, good, someone else can hold me up for a while. And then we sink and sink, that's one theory. I could probably give you a few different theories, but one version of it might be, okay, good. I've been carrying the groceries every time. I've been the one shoveling my driveway, or I've been the one taking care of everything all the time. And now I have someone else. And then we just lean way too far the other way. And so rather than just having it be someone supporting us, like, hey, I am happy to have Tommy shovel the driveway, I got no problem with that. But sometimes what we do is, it's like we let go of everything. We let go of all of our own self accountability, right? As opposed to navigate. How do I allow myself to be contributed to? How do I keep my heart open without putting my heart in someone else's hands and having them be responsible? Because no man or woman is ever actually like intending on being the sole caregiver of your heart. They're thinking you're taking care of that thing. Right. Or your life, or your, you know what I mean? Everything. Right. And so, I think a lot of it is that we just have this tendency to swing to the extreme. I think sometimes too, it's like as women, I think we have a tendency to do that, because also by our nature, we like feeling like we're contributing to people. We like feeling like we're taking care. We like feeling like we're making people happy. Like there's something, I think it's just that fundamental nurturer inside of us, whether we want to be parents or not. And so we like that feeling, but it's when it's at the level of ego, which we all have, right? It's just part of being human. We get a little addicted to that feeling. And then we don't like the feeling of inconveniencing someone. We don't like the feeling of saying, no, and then it's so funny, because then what happens is we build resentment, and then we flip out
Right.
Or turn into super bitch or loser sex drive, right? Whatever those so the extreme just causes the backlash extreme to happen. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why so much of what I talk about, like, and even if you think of the term, so power love, dating is the name of the book, but power love is a term I use a lot for even like power loving yourself, power loving your business, power loving your money, like power love it all. Right. But the idea of power love is like that you have that sense of personal power or the strength, the drive of it all with still the softness of love. Right. But you have the softness of love without losing the strength and the drive and the, so it's like the two merging together as this entity is kind of the whole idea of it. So that's to me what my explanation of navigating the in-between, but it comes up everywhere. It comes up all the time. Right.
Yeah, for sure. I just love how we are covering this so deeply because, at the end of the day, life is about relationships. It's about community, and the most triggering or the most impactful relationship are typically our romantic relationships. And they're so complicated, it's so complicated. Like we want to label it. We don't want to label it. We, want to be a certain way. And then we swing too much on one side and then on the other side. It's just this ongoing journey of learning to love someone else as well as learning to love yourself in the process as well. Not forgetting who you are.
Totally.
Wow. Michelle, I feel like we could talk forever.
I know. Yeah. So we probably could, right? So I believe the gift that I just want to make sure it's powerless to powerful. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So so that's one thing. So that's a link I think everyone should go to. That's another place where the teaching more than anything is coming from my, like some pretty intimate, raw and real stories from my life that I haven't shared on this podcast. And it's for me, it's the story of going from powerless to powerful in the area of love, but you'll hear that really it's in the area of myself. Right. And so that's something I just wanted to gift everybody. It also gets people connected into my Power Love mailing list, which is great. I give lots of free content there. And, I didn't mention this, Jen, but one thing that I would love to invite everybody to, because this is something that's new and really exciting, is I have just created a private Facebook group called Empowered Women. Oh, it has like a subtitle to it, but it's called Empowered Women. And you know what, Jen, I'll give you the link. I'll just
I do. I actually do have the link. So here
you do. Okay,
and perfect. I'm like literally looking at the Facebook group right now. So it says Empowered Women, the place for elevating self, relationships, and business.
And it could be business or career, right? But so at the level of self, at the level of any kind of relationships, and also within your business or career. So this is an awesome place. If you consider yourself an empowered woman, or you want to be an empowered woman, or just being empowered or empowering others matters to you, this is an awesome place. We've been doing this for probably about a month now, and we're doing our first challenge coming up in a few days. It's just all very exciting. So
awesome.
So everyone listening is totally invited to join me there. Yeah.
Beautiful. I will probably put in my request as well.
Yeah, definitely.
To join that group and be in community with you and the people that I'm sure you inspire and empower above all else. Michelle, I needed this conversation today. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's such a pleasure. Such a pleasure.
Yeah, no, this was a wonderful conversation today, and I hope that our listeners had gained a ton from it. Before we go, any closing thoughts, and also how, in addition to everything you already threw at us, how can people get a hold of you if they want to reach out?
Well, Facebook's a really easy way. And I never want there to be a division. Like if you want to just send me a private message through Facebook, like you're not intruding, just do that. That's the easiest way. I'm a big girl. I turn my notifications off. So I only check when it works for me. So anytime, day or night, if you need to, that's the easiest way. And then of course there's also my website, which is michellebaxo.com.
Awesome. Well, Michelle, thank you again so much for your time. I really enjoyed our conversation today. And to our listeners, thank you for listening. We hope that you were able to say, I needed this too. And with that said, we thank you so much for your time and look forward to speaking with you in the next episode. Tune in next time.